All right. Welcome back, everybody, to live with the Rebirth Experience, whatever, with Coach K and Charlena Anita. We have not been here for a while, but in the meantime, while we were on this break, Charlena now has a son in love officially. So,
Yes, I
giving you a
do.
little bit of applause. I too am very thankful that the wedding is over. Okay, been waiting. I've been waiting for this feeling of freedom, not having this weight of to dos that I'm not really getting done like I should. So I'm very thankful that it's over and we got her married off. She's a real adult now.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that that's going to tie in greatly with our topic tonight. But before we do that, I'm going to say who's here, but I definitely want everybody to reintroduce or to introduce themselves. Everybody here has been here before, but that doesn't mean that you saw the episode that they were in. So make sure you go to Coach Cara on YouTube and that you're subscribed there. You can scroll back through our past episodes. We're still growing and building the show, but we have some fantastic episodes that I mean, just really, really good. Look, you don't have to be Oprah to have a good thought. To share your gift. We all have our own unique human experiences. So I really encourage you to go back and look at some of our other episodes. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you share it with other people. And I'm joined today by Charlena, Anita, by Steve, by Bruce. And I'm really hoping that everybody comes back frequently because these are really just grown folk conversations. That's all we're doing. We're not trying to make no noise. We're not trying to compete with what other people are doing. We're just sharing our human experiences. And with that being said, I'm going to go to Charlena Anita next. Whatever you want to say to the people.
It's just good to be back. The last several months have been pretty hectic for me, for Coach K as well. My daughter got married, and any parent who has gone through that process knows that a significant weight has been lifted in terms of the planning, but the reward of having an amazing son-in-law and my daughter being as happy as she is and to see how beautiful and happy she was on the day was just it was worth it all. So it's good to be back. I'm happy that Steve and Bruce are here joining us today. uh, Cara and I were on the phone a little earlier and we started to get into it. And I was like, no, no, stop, wait, no, we need it all to be authentic and just, we can't like put it all out here. So we've saved a lot of good stuff for the show today. And we hope that those of you who are joining us today will enjoy it.
And Steve, and I want you to tell, I need to know how you did that background. I'm jealous. I'm looking because I moved my desk and now it's like there's a door behind me. It's not sexy at all like it was. So
Well,
I'm
I so I'm on my laptop and there's a settings thing that allows you to generate a different background. So that's the one I chose.
okay. Don't you try it, Charlena. You'll end up kicking
No,
yourself out. I won't be able to
I'm
get you back in.
surprised that you don't know how to do that because I do, but I'm gonna leave it at that.
I'm throwing some shade, but okay. She figured out some technology before me.
I know.
Okay, all right, Steve. I'm sorry. I have to be messy sometimes.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess the main thing, I've always been a student of human behavior. So, any discussion, conversation that deals with human behavior, I'm there for. So this is a good one, I think. Maybe. We'll see.
Lauren, over to you.
Bruce. So, Bruce, real quick, I
Bruce.
think it's all about So part of my background, what intrigues me about this is one of my academic interests is sociology, right? So there's the identity associated with this topic, and then how economics play into a perception of identity, and then how that's changed over time. So I'd be
Mhm.
curious to sort of unpack that a little bit because I think the whole process and the interpersonal engagement and the use of social and how that's influenced and changed the way people perceive this topic. I'm just interested to see what folks' thoughts are.
Mhm.
Very good.
And with that, Car, are you going to introduce our topic?
Yes, and I even, our shared boyfriend chat, okay, gave me some additional, just some popcorn things to get us going. First of all, I want to give Bruce the credit for this topic because you mentioned it, I think, at the end of our last conversation, which was months ago, guys. I'm trying to remember what that topic was. Oh, we were talking about, it was towards the beginning of the year. We had all this change going on post-election. We were talking about the impact on our community. Excellent episode, you guys. And so if I were fancier, I would like say it's up here like they do on YouTube. It could happen, but I don't know how to do that right now. So you mentioned at the end of that episode, you were like, I think it would be a great topic to talk about the economics of dating. So if you can recall that, Bruce, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but if you can recall that, I would love if you would share what you think that title means before I go into like some question and answer how we feel about it. And let's just be honest. I mean, nobody on here is dating, so we can tell the truth. I'm definitely going to tell the truth about how I feel.
Right.
But I also hold space for, I'm always open to changing my mind. So what do you want to share about that, Bruce, and what you were thinking at that time?
I just think some of it is, first and foremost, I don't have all the answers, but I do look at cause and effect, and I try to look at it over time. And as I alluded to, this whole notion of identity, like folks see themselves through a specific lens at various stages as you're dating, right? So when you're 22, 23 years old, you have a certain set of expectations of the dating space, and then how the world sees you and how you see the world and the reality of the world in 3D, right? So I think some of it's how that's changed since I was a younger person, and then how the dynamics and economics of dating have played into it in a way that it's much more outward facing. And it seems to me it's more about, it's less about the real sort of interaction and getting to know, but more about the activities that are external and almost market influenced to define what dating looks like or what it is, valuable or invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You think it's more transactional now?
It feels that way. It feels that way. And it's amazing because I don't perceive that gets to allowing a person to understand compatibility really. Because if it's just seen through transaction, then you can suspend the transaction, but you still care for the person. There's no loss in value. But I also think that there's a lot more attention given to how entertainment is justifiable in retention of a relationship.
What do you mean by that?
So you have to go to, the list came out a couple of months ago about certain women would never go to these restaurants because they were chains.
Right.
And it was like, well, what's wrong with those places? And why is it that we're in a space that has even come up? Mm-hmm. And then I think the economics of what are the expectations, there's something driving that. That wasn't always the case. So what has been the sort of market forces that have infiltrated dating, and it's sort of redefined what the norms are? And then how is it that certain segments of the population take, at least my experiences of certain segments and demographics within that segment, they will ride with that almost as though it's like it's absolutely positive, and the outcome of that dictates success. So, and if you fall short of that, then you don't merit a sustainable kind of relationship. And I don't know where that comes from. I say that I'm not saying it applies to all situations, because it doesn't. But what is promoted seems to be that way a lot.
I think that part of the driving force of that is this phrase that we hear it so often. It's I guess they've worn it out when people say know your worth. And so when people say know your worth, that gets translated into I'm worth more than just a date at Applebee's. I'm worth a date at, fill in the blank, and it's usually someplace expensive. I had one person tell me once that people, men should be okay with paying for women's time. And again, I think that's tied into that, what are you worth? But again, it's a slippery slope, because at what point does it become too transactional, where the possibility of a relationship is obscured because you're into all this other superficial stuff, I think.
So I have a question, and my question is this. I'm listening to what both of you have said, and I believe dating has always been transactional. I think that what we're seeing now is people are becoming more verbal and are able to articulate, well, it's a couple of things. They're able to articulate what it is they want from the transaction. And I think that the transaction has become more quantitatively defined.
Mhm.
And so I also think that part of that is the culture. I think the culture of social media that puts a dollar amount on um, what the transaction, putting a dollar amount of whatever it is that we're exchanging in the transaction. I'm quantifying it by a dollar amount. And so I think that that's really a lot of what we're seeing.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts? First of all, do you think that dating has always been transactional? Because I believe it is.
Well,
But
I think it, yeah, to a degree, but I don't think that in the past, and maybe I'm wrong,
Mhm.
in the past, I don't think that people allowed the transaction to drive it to the point where they couldn't get to actually know each other. I think now you're almost evaluated or assessed on your willingness to, be a big spender or whatever. And here's the interesting thing, because I think reality doesn't meet whatever is online. Several months ago, I looked at what's the average cost of a date here in Atlanta. The average cost of a date in Atlanta, if you go out, is about $130. So now, how many times a month are you going to go out at $130 a pop?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And if you don't do that, along with what Bruce said before, um, um, some people are saying, well, I don't do coffee dates, or I don't do walks in the park, or I'm not going to. So it kind of eliminates the things that in the past people would do to get to know each other, and it limits them to doing these high dollar things that can be I don't know, the catalyst for resentment. And it makes it makes the transaction almost more than it gives it more weight than it should, I think.
I think that's a blessing in disguise. I think
Yeah, I
it
agree.
can
I
be, and it
agree.
should. If you're male or female, but I'm going to say, let's say if you're a dude and you want to go out with a woman and she says, well, I'll only go out with you if we go to here, or I can't go there. That's telling you a lot about who she is and what she values, and that she's really not trying to get to know you. It's really
Well, not
about.
only that, but not only that, and some of you've seen them. I'm sure you've seen them. Some have a laundry list of things that they want before they even go on a date. You've got to, pay for my nails, pay for my hair, pay for my babysitter, and we got to go to a nice spot.
Mhm.
Now, all I'm saying is that if you're spending $300, $400, $500, see that now it the priority shifts, because most people are going to say, well, what am I getting for $500?
Mhm.
And some women would say, well, you get to spend time with me. And some men would say, I need more than that.
Mhm.
And
So
even the more than that, is that enough? You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
trying this because the walks in the park are more valuable. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly.
Because it gives me an authentic way to get to know who you are, to determine compatibility.
Right. Right.
And I can
Right.
talk to you more. And if I'm in an open space, frankly, if I'm out and about, fresh air, I think a little bit different. I act a little bit different. It's something that comes with that, right? And it's a reason why people do it.
Right. Right.
So I agree. I think, it's just, I
But
don't want to say anything charged, but I just think it's, I'll stop. Steve, you were about to say something.
No, it's about to
No,
get charged. It's about to get charged, Bruce. Charge it up.
yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, I'm looking at the economics from this standpoint, and then you have other folks who say, well, if a man can't do this, then he's a broke man or he's a cheap man or whatever. But and I'm old school, so I'm only going to go on so many dates at $130 a pop. I'm just not built that way. You figure 3 dates a month, you spent almost $500 if that's just if
that's a
you're
car
going.
note.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? That's a
yeah,
car
yeah.
note.
And so for me, that kind of thing, what's the saying? The juice is not worth the squeeze. I mean, that's just not. I'm not. I'll do more walks in the park and coffee dates. But again, I agree with what you're saying. A person who agrees to those kind of dates tells me a lot, and I'm okay with that. A walk in the park, as Bruce pointed out, you get to know a whole lot about a person versus, me trying to impress you, going to the fanciest restaurant or whatever. At the end of the night, I'm going to be a lot lighter in the wallet. And again, as you said, what do you have to show for that?
Yeah. And I just want to add too, the other side of this too, not all men, not all women frame dating around that level of transaction.
Yeah.
And then
Agree.
the way the world is configured now, social media has done one thing. It's expanded the world. So what you come to understand is there are people who that's very critical, the transactional engagement. And then there's a lot of men and women that doesn't impact it.
Right. Right.
So the mindset is regardless if I have resources, if that's not something I am prepared to immerse myself in, because I want more something I perceive, however I define it, authentic. And there are other, folks in the world that makes it a little bit easier. And that's within groups, without groups, that all folks are not like that. I mean, I think if you look more metropolitan, which we are describing, may be a little bit more applicable. Other places,
it might be generational. It may be generational,
Absolutely. So I do find that it's not all or nothing. I don't feel as though I have to fall into it this way or that. And I also feel that the world being what the world is, all of us have choices and options that because of social media that maybe weren't there 30 years ago, And how do you make best use of that as well?
Ooh, I'm telling you guys, there's so much here. And we may have to do a part 2 if you guys are open. I already see it because I have my own thoughts. And then I did get a lot from asking the question, but I feel like some of what I'm saying is kind of the conclusion of the matter. So I'm going to ask one of these questions first. Well, I do want to start with how do we think this is different amongst the generations? Because Charlene and I have had a couple of great conversations with some younger guys in their 30s. Like I've been on their show. They, I think, came over here or the main, I don't know if you met the second guy, Brandon, Charlena, but they're so different. And I don't mean that negatively. They made me think maybe I should start dating guys in their 30s. Like they just, but it also made me see this is why men sometimes go lower. I didn't see the damage in them. They weren't, I mean, they both went through some heartache for sure. And that's part of what we talked about, but they weren't as guarded as I see with the men my age. They just weren't as guarded. It was great, open. It was just very different. And so do you think there's a difference when we talk about dating or even thinking of things like the way that I think a man's mentality has a lot to do with how he does this. Is he a provider type mentality? Does he have a sense of I'm the man, so I must do this? And then if you don't think that way, I don't think that other man is less valuable, but it's definitely I feel like it's a reckoning or something. It seems like some men just come to a conclusion and they seem to put themselves in a certain category of, I'm the full provider, I'm a 50-50 guy, I'm a guy who might do it all, but I need to see if you're worth it type situation.
Mm.
What do you guys think about that? Steve, I know you have an opinion. You're just trying to
Yeah,
wait
well,
on.
but I think I think it's different. Younger men versus older men, and younger women versus older women. Um, and let's throw the other thing in there. It really depends on what you're trying to. What's the ultimate goal of this dating?
Right.
And I have found, as I'm older, some women who are in my age range, they want stability, companionship, marriage, more than likely, which is something that some men like my age may not want. So if they choose to date younger, it brings in a different dynamic, and that is, it goes back to something that Bruce said. Depending on what you're doing on the date, will determine what's happening with that. Is it a genuine date, or are you kind of being used because you're older, you're perceived as being established, and you have the resources to do some of the things that maybe at say 40 something or whatever, maybe they're not able to do. So that's a dynamic that has to be, and that may be why some men are guarded, because they've tried to date younger, and younger women see, here's an older established guy, maybe I can get more from this transaction or this dating thing. Maybe, I don't know. So you've got a lot of I won't say ulterior motives, but you got a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts that will dictate what's happening with this date. And then you have, I'm sure you all have heard of the term breadcrumbing. You've heard of that before? So
Mm-hmm.
breadcrumbing is essentially where a person, say, Cara, I'm interested in you, and you're kind of interested in me, but you're not really interested in me, but we have good dates. And so you give me just enough interest for me to continue pursuing you, but not enough to make it a commitment. And so that can go on with some people 6 months, a year,
Yeah.
with no resolution. Where's this relationship going? We're friends. It's getting, there's a possibility it could be more, but there's never more, but we're still dating. That's a breadcrumbing kind of thing, where you give them just enough to stay interested, but not enough, you're not committed to them. And that happens a lot on both sides. So it's quite interesting.
Lauren, you want to add on to that? I just have so much to say.
Yeah, not it's not. I think it's spot on. I think it's all about your particular journey and where you are. I know this is going to be common sense, right? But all along your journey, what has been the impact of it? The guardedness comes with taking risk and falling short, or not being valued or appreciated for some of the trust you've sort of applied to the relationship. That has not been appreciated or valued. So now you're a little bit more guarded. And then being guarded, another factor that plays in, given experience, then maybe you become a little bit more self-focused or self-interested or selfish, in part because it's like, you know what? There's certain takeaways that I want, because you know what? When I try to be equally yoked or try to be engaged, it doesn't necessarily, or has not worked out to my benefit. So for a lot of folks, that's the key to why they may say, you know what, I want companionship, but this is the reason why maybe marriage is not something I want to entertain, because I have an idea of what I want, but just given my history and given my lived experience, I know that happy ever after may be too costly emotionally or psychologically. Less about money, but just the way I feel and the way I move forward. So it's not even about the money. It's about,
Actually, the spending the money is the easy part.
That is the easy part.
If you have reservations about those other things, then the money is really the easy part.
Yeah.
Okay, let me jump in here with a few thoughts. Wow, too costly emotionally. What I'm hearing in part, and this is part of what makes me sad. So I'm just gonna be totally honest with you guys. I'm 3 years out of a divorce, and I have been doing a ton of work on myself, exhausting to the point where I'm hitting a wall right now. Like, I feel like I'm trying to achieve like this sort of perfect character. It's not working, whatever. My concern is I don't feel like men are doing the work. I don't feel like men are doing the work. And it's so funny because so many times, men have said, don't associate me with your ex, or just because your ex cheated doesn't mean I cheat. But nobody highlights that a lot of men do the same thing. So if a woman has burned a man financially, he's more guarded that somebody else is after my money. And rather than stay on that track, I just want to give you what I see as the answer right away, that I've learned coming through my own healing journey and saying, yes, I've experienced these things in the past, but I still believe that this thing, this better thing, this happily ever after is waiting for me. And I'm making that intentional choice every day. That's because I learned the only thing I need to do is trust myself. I just need to trust myself. Then if I'm out on a date with Steve or I'm on a date with Bruce, I'm not worried about Steve's intentions because I trust myself. And as long as I keep, sewing into it and having the conversations, the truth is going to come to me and I can make a decision at that time. And what I find is that because if you stay in this place of the last person was after for money, or, oh, I see that cue, and the last chick who said that she was really trying to get this, you're never going to get to the truest part of them. And let me go on by saying this about the park. I love the park. And I love the idea of a park date. I mean, Charlena knows at this point, Steve knows I'm a camper. I'm backpacking. My dream is to meet someone who loves those things, and that be an area that I don't have to compromise on. So we're not even going to a hotel. We're packing up the tents and going to the woods for the weekend. But here's my concern, y'all. I don't want to be in the park forever. And I've been like you want to talk about your wounds. I've been in these homebody relationships where we started in the living room, we stayed in the living room, we never left the living room. Either we're at his house, my house. My thing is, I don't need to be out every weekend. I wouldn't mind if we had a schedule. I'm just built different, but I'm fighting against all the sea of women who feel very differently. So if we had it on the calendar and I knew, hey, we don't do Valentine's Day. There's so many things I would be willing to shelve for the sake of just knowing it will happen. So once a year, we go on a trip, and once every quarter we go out and have a really nice dinner. But it seems to be, I don't know. I guess it's like this all or one mentality. But I want to tell you, a lot of women, I think, lead with that because they're afraid that if they come in too low and you don't do anything in the first couple of dates, it ain't coming. That we're always this is the destination. We're always going to be here. And we will assume that the guy might be cheap or whatever. And that's a first impression that occurs. And that's why I just wish that my hope would be that more men would listen to their gut in those conversations before you even go on the date, so that you can decide in advance how you want to show up in case this is your only shot with her. Because if you sideline her, I had a dude I met at the library. Like, I'm not hard. I need to be harder. And I realized later that he chose the library because it was free. Like, there wasn't even any coffee there, So my standards have been a problem for me. But I'm also not trying to come out with this boss bitch Cheesecake Factory energy either, because I don't deeply care about that. I don't ever want to be in a situation again with someone who's committed to doing the very minimum for me. He never I need someone who's willing to sweat a little bit at, will she be pleased? Will she like this? Will she be happy? And I'm almost done, Charlena. I'm gonna turn the mic totally over to you. For me, that is so important because my reciprocity is so amazing and I just didn't know it. If you like orange cake with yellow frosting and they only make it in Dallas, Georgia, I'm going to go get that for you on a random Tuesday, not your birthday. So I don't deserve someone who's not willing to do extra special things for me. It'd be different if I was a taker and I wasn't giving on that level, but that's where I'm at. And I'll share more in a bit. Charlene, what do you got?
I just don't think all of this is that hard. It it really, to me, it's not that hard. I think that like looks for like should attract like. I think that there are people who are extremely transactional. They are looking for what am I going to get, and they're only going to put in what they think they're going to get. And there are people that know their relationship is transactional. I want this for you from I want this, and if you give me this, I will give you that. And there are people who are very, very comfortable with that, and I think that that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that if that's what you want, if that's how you show up, if that's what works for the two people. I think the problem comes in is when someone who's truly looking for, they're trying to lead with the qualities of a relationship and looking to build something that's a connection versus what are you going to do for me and what is that going to cost me. When when the person who's looking for something of substance is connected with someone who's transactional, that's going to be the challenge, and vice versa. That's where the challenge, that's where the issue comes in. But let's be clear. There are people where when it is extremely transactional, you do this for me and I will give you that. And they are okay with that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it if both people are okay with that and if that's what they want. But the problem comes when you have two people who want different things. And I think part of the dating process is finding out, first of all, it's realizing who you are. Because if
Right.
you are very heavily transactional, that's okay. You just got to find that person that matches that energy. And if you are truly about, no, it's about substance, it's about quality of relationship, it's about building, it's about connection, that's great too. Just find that person. So I think that that's what causes a lot of the challenges in the relationship. Or sometimes we're in the relationship and we're hoping that that person is what we are. They're showing us that they're not, or we want connection, and they're showing us that they're transactional. But we're trying to make them be a connection, quality, building relationship type of person, and then we're
Right.
doing things that to try to change them. And really it's about us not realizing this is not what I want. This really isn't what I want, and that person's not going to be able to give me that. And instead of choosing to walk away, we're still trying because I guess we want them, so we're still trying to make them be that person that they're not.
What you got on that, Steve?
Yeah, I think she's right. I think we have to be honest with a couple of things. We have to be honest with ourselves in terms of who we are, what we want. And I think once we are able to be honest with ourselves, then it will whoever we have choose to interact with, it will be clear almost immediately if they're going to fit into whatever those goals are that we have for ourselves. And I think that's that, as you're saying, what often happens probably is people assume that they can change or influence this person to be more like what they want, and that doesn't necessarily happen. What you see is probably what you get, and it's going to get worse as time goes on. It's not going to get better usually. um, but I think, circling back, I think most people are not honest with themselves in terms of what they want from the dating experience.
Mhm.
And because they are not honest with themselves, then yeah, the dates go awry all the time because there's no what do you really want from this? And if you ask a person that, will they be honest and say, this is what I want?
Mhm.
A lot of people are not, some people are not emotionally mature enough to answer that question and
Mhm.
say, I'm all about transaction right now. All I want right now is a companionship. I'm not looking to get married. I'm not looking for anything that's super serious. I'm okay treading water. We can do a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm not going to go whatever.
Mhm.
Most people won't say that. And if they do say it, a lot of people can't handle
Mm,
I agree.
you
And
dropped a bomb at the end right there.
I think it's okay if, and I'm a little transparency here. I think throughout my dating life, at different times in my life, sometimes it was depending on who the person was, it varied what I wanted. Um,
it.
I
Right.
I think of one specific relationship that interesting enough, it had a certain level of substance, but on a certain level it was transactional. And that
Right.
that worked. It was, you know what? I know that this is what you desire from me. I'm able and willing to give that. And this is what I would like for you. And you are coming with that. And so this works for me. And so I think it's okay to, but there was a time came where that was no longer enough for me. It wasn't what I continued to want over time. So, again, it's about the honesty. It's about connecting with someone who is in a like space and like mind and like hearted space. Not light hearted, but like heart of like hearts.
Right. Right.
And I think that will give us peace. And as you said, Steve, it's hard to ask those. It's hard to sometimes. It's hard to admit. You know what? This person really, all I want from them is this.
Right.
Like
Right.
that, because it might make you think, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. Really? You know, I think what's most important is being honest with yourself, honest with what it is that you want, honest with that person. And if it's quote transactional and whatever that looks like, then I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Right. Right.
Jeez, Lauren, why can't we be honest? Why can't we be honest about who we are and what we want? Look, I can, and it's taken me
Yeah,
a long time to get here. But why? Why?
I you know, I, and this is a little different. I had a friend once tell me, and she told me this at the end of her life. It was, and so she had this clarity, right? And she said, Lauren, I was going through some stuff in a relationship myself at the time, in the marriage actually, and she said it very easy, very easy. She said, Lauren, you got to move the wrong people out of your life so the right people can move into your life.
Mhm.
So it also alleviates the burden of feeling as though you got to put up with something or you got to hold on to something that may not be for you. And you talked about earlier, Charlene, about the seasons, right? Or the individuals. You may be in a season, this is what works. Guess what? You wake up, you know, next day or a month, 6 months, it's not what you want. I'm not trying to say try to be flip about it, but I think for me, it's about peace. So that's at the center of it. So I understand that, if it's not for me, that's okay. Because the mindset I often have is that if I'm moving something that is combative, difficult, transactional, or heavy-handedly transactional, then, that's good for me because let me move that person on to that person who's better suited for them. Because in the grand
Right. And I think that's crucial because some sometimes the people that we choose or the people that we think we want in our lives aren't able to give us what we think we need. Not only that, though, we have to clarify what it is we need versus what we have always accepted because of some of the experiences in our lives. See, there's a difference between you needing something for you to flourish and you needing something because of some other maybe trauma or bad experience or whatever. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times those things get entangled, and we have to separate them, you know, because sometimes, and this goes back to being honest, can we really say that we know what's best for us? Have we been able to identify that? And if we can say that, then that will clarify who it is we associate with.
Wow. And yeah, I just, so much of this is hitting for me. And I think part of it's because I have done so much work. But I want to say that I think that it's hard for people to be honest. Honesty starts within yourself, right? So if I desire a certain thing or a certain type of partner, that's one thing. There's layers to that. But the other part is you may not really believe that you're going to get what you want if you're honest. So I think that's the biggest reason why people are struggle to be honest. And I mean, some big examples would be like if a guy doesn't want to be monogamous, but he doesn't want to say that because you're going to leave. He's not willing to take the risk. When the truth is, I've already told my 14-year-old son this. Son, if you will just tell girls the truth from the beginning, you would be shocked. They're so good. They may want you even more. But and they're going to go around telling everyone he's honest. He tells the truth. He would probably have girls coming out because they're also all going to think I can be the one to change his mind, which is a whole nother conversation.
Right.
You know, again, it goes back to the self-trust and then trusting what's for me. So that's part of that. But I love what you said too here, Steve, about sometimes the people we want in our lives aren't able to give us what we need. I mean, that is strong. That's why I had to put it on the screen. My spiritual mother puts it this way, and I have repeated this to myself so many times over the past few years. She says, it is unloving to expect someone to do something that they're just not capable of. So I'm going to continue to be mad at you for not getting me flowers every single day. When you have a problem, you can't even remember to do that, but I'm continuing to beat you up. And that's why I think mutual self-awareness is so good, because you can tell me up front, I am never going to remember that. And I can just mourn that and let it go and stop expecting it instead of beating you up. And then you keep trying because you haven't accepted yourself. I'm not great at that. That's not what I do. That's not what I bring to this relationship. And when you get two people together and neither is self-aware, or only one is, or one person thinks they are, but when they're showing up a certain way and you try to call them on it, they don't want to hear it. It just goes into all types of toxicity, dysfunction, especially if by that point in time you already like each other. So like you're trying to make it work, but there's all this abrasion going on, you know?
And the other reality is that sometimes, as perfect as we think we are, because of our self-assessment, our awareness or lack of awareness, we may not necessarily be able to give another person what they need. You know, a lot of times we think we hold ourselves up at the standard and say, well, they're not giving us what we need. What, you know what I'm saying? It could be that we're not able to give them what they need.
And what do you do with that?
No, wait, let me add on to that really quickly. This is important. You guys are going to like this. I have learned just through all the reading of different things, I think that women automatically assume that they're giving a man what he needs and that they know what he needs and dot. And I have learned post-marriage that, yes, I think that women think we know. And that a lot of women, we don't really listen to what a man is saying. And if they don't phrase it in the feminine type way that we're used to, we can misunderstand. And he's sitting there with unmet needs that he has expressed. And maybe because he gave a headline and didn't do all these details, there's so many reasons why I think we miss it. Or women will do, because we're so good at this, coordinate and do all these things. And so then when he has the nerve to come and say that he has an unmet need, we're like, I'm doing all of this. But it's like this. I used to tell my ex-husband this all the time. You could rub my foot all day, but if my knee is hurting, I don't feel it.
Right.
So I think that it would behoove people who are in relationships listen and try to get to the root of what the unmet need really is. Don't get defensive. I'm doing all these things. And I just feel personally that a lot of women really struggle with that. And even the noise in social media tends to focus more on the needs of women. And women are so much more vocal about our past pains, hurts, etc., that I do feel and have a passion for men not really getting their needs met to the point where they don't even bother to talk about what they need anymore. They focus on the big three, you know what I'm saying? And don't even go down that other road of, hey, I want to talk about my job sometimes or my passion point, or I wish we could go do the things I enjoy. It just kind of gets lost, in my opinion. Lauren, you've been
And
quiet.
and I think all of that, and even though most times when we say economics, we're thinking money, but that really economics could be time management. It could be how we expend our emotions. All of those things, in terms of relationship and dating or whatever, are important. But I think it has to start with: do you know what you want when you're dating? And if you don't know, then you're setting yourself up for failure. I think that's where it starts, because you can't be honest, or you won't be honest with what you think you want or whatever, and then it just spirals out of control at that point, I think.
Bruce, what do you think?
I agree with all these points. I think there a lot of value and validity to it. I think you bring up a great point about listening intensely and being authentic and being present. And I think some of those things, there was a book that came out several years ago called The Power of Now, and your ability to kind of suspend the past in order to be in the present and not suffer in the present because you can't let go of the past, which your suffering also impacts the future. And, I guess the best example is, well, I'll be so much better once I lose this 20 pounds, which is in the future, right? So now I'm in the present, I'm suffering because I'm not 20 pounds lighter, versus recognizing the gift is being right now, And I just think sometimes it could be like the process you're going through in terms of sort of self-improvement. But I think there's also asking the questions about what is of value to me? What is most important? If I suspend everything else, what is it that brings me greatest joy and gives me greatest value? And if I get to some conclusion around that, maybe it becomes easier to seek out something a little bit different or be clear on what it is I think I want. So I don't know. I mean, I just think there's a lot of noise going on that just makes it difficult for a person to hear their own self, and therefore make it difficult to assess. Here's what I think in my spirit is of value to me as I'm dating.
Wow. I mean, that was so good. I wanted to say, so, there are some men who do pay up, right? They buy into this whole thing. They spend the money on the dates. I just feel like women are asking for that because they're equating it to their worth and their value. And so if they're not receiving that, then they question your feelings for them and everything, because we do tend to believe, and some women believe very strongly, that where a man puts his pocketbook is a reflection of his love, or his feel. What I'm saying is, Charlene,
No. I agree with you. It's not that, but
he's
it's not
not
true.
willing to make any sort of financial sacrifice for you, which is
So-
what a lot of men hold nearest and dearest. It's like, are you really invested? If he's not investing in you in all ways, is he really into it?
So I think that's only true for certain men, because there are certain men where at a point it's nothing for them to go and spend a couple of $100s on a date. That does not have as much impact, or it doesn't show how much they value you, because for them money is not what is truly, quote, I'll say, a sacrifice for them. You know, maybe it's their time, it's their attention, it's the energy that they put into planning the next date, or doing, thinking outside the box and doing something different for you. So, unfortunately, a lot of women think that money is equal to that the money he spends is equal, that it equates to your value to him. And for many men, it doesn't, because that's an easy thing for him to do. It's easy for him to say, well, no, I'm not going to take her to the Cheesecake Factory. I'll take her here, or I'll buy this gift for her, or whatever. Um, there's just a certain point in time where that doesn't hold the value that you think it does.
Well, because let
And
me ask something. Let me jump in here real quick because I want to ask the guys this about this Cheesecake Factory thing. Okay. What's fascinating about that is that most of the women, how can I phrase this? The women who are obsessed with that, most of them are not on the level of what they're asking for, if we're honest. Okay. Now they may be physically, and that's a whole nother conversation. I wish that men
I
weren't
wish
so
we could go.
visual. I wish that men weren't, because sometimes it's like, oh, well, that's you get what you get, because they're obsessed with a certain body type. Like they're so driven visually that they miss out on really great women who are attractive. I'm not talking about dating somebody who you think looks like a dog or whatever, but they miss so much, and then they end up with these reindeer games. Meanwhile, the high quality, and let's forget those terms, high value, because they're too saturated now. But a high quality woman doesn't have to ask a man to take her somewhere nice. Let's be clear. He meets her and he knows that's what's required if he wants to be involved with her. And so he may choose not to even approach her because he's like, I know that's out of my range, right? That's my opinion. I'm speaking on behalf of men, but I'm just saying the women I see talking about the cheesecake thing, they can barely enunciate their words. Okay, they don't. I mean,
but see, and I think the thing we haven't talked about, the other, what are some of the motivating factors that are leading people to date? And let's be clear, sex is one of them. And so sometimes I think the transaction is around that, even though
You
people aren't saying that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Just a little
we
bit.
should have been on that 20 minutes ago,
Yeah.
Come on.
But I'm just saying, and I think some studies have shown, or I remember reading somewhere, they're like, women know within 5 minutes or not if they're going to have sex with if they want to have sex with this person. You know what I'm saying? And
Well,
and men are trying to woo them by whatever. And so it's almost, it reminds me of those nature programs I used to watch as a kid. You have the male who's preening and doing the feather thing and making, trying to get this arousal from this female. I think that men who lead with money, for example, maybe that's what they're doing. I don't know. But that's also a factor on why you have this two ships passing the night, as it were, in terms of how dates can be transactional and how it goes awry because she's not interested, but she's going to eat. I mean, she doesn't mind eating or spending the money. So I think that's a part of it too.
Well, I want to hear from Bruce, but you can find that out before you even do the first date. I'll tell y'all this. I remember when I was in college, there was this guy. I wouldn't really say we dated, if you know what I mean, but we tried. We just did not get along in the daytime. I'll put it that way. We just could not. We argued about every little thing. And so he told me, when I go to the club or the party, I look for the finest chick in there. And if she turns me down, I'm done for the night. I thought that was crazy. And so I think that sometimes men aren't looking for, is this mutual? They're focusing on what they want. I like her. She's
It's
hot.
that
She got
hunting
fat
thing.
ass,
It's that
whatever.
hunting thing. It's that hunting thing. See
Yes.
that hunting? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're not really looking for, is this a two-way thing?
The
Because
conquering thing.
in my own dating
conquering thing.
experiences, I don't think most men are good at picking up signals. Like because they'll think you're giving a signal and you're not. They'll think you're not giving a signal and you are. And then you're on the phone with your girlfriend's disappointed how it went. But I guess because we can't have, like, my best interactions have been with men who were just direct. They just came out with and said whatever it was. Like I respect the hell out of that. But I think there's so much in there. There's just confusion again about why are we here right now. Because if the man was honest and just said, this is all I'm after, or if he said, I'm trying to find a life partner, that it's going to
Right.
shape them. To me, I wish more men would just lead that conversation and get it out from the beginning, because we crave leadership so bad. Okay, go ahead, Charlene.
No, I understand. I agree in principle, but I'm not going to put that on all on the man. I
Okay.
think as women, we need to uh, assert ourselves, and we also need, like, we need to, the power that we have, we need to exercise the power that we have. Ask a man. Don't be afraid to ask him. Like, I remember one time I asked a dude, I'm like, this is this what this, you really want to get in my panties, right? Like, that's like, we can cut to the chase. Is that really just what this is? Like, I just wanted to know. Um, it doesn't hurt to ask, you know, what is it that you're looking for here? I mean, that's grown people conversation. You know, just
Exactly.
how a
Exactly.
man can come and say, hey, you know what? I'm really interested in you. I would really like to get to know you. Um, a woman can ask. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
You know what kind of first date I would love, and I'm going to shut up because I think somebody else has something to say. This would be my dream. Now, all the experts say not to do this. I would like to say, what are the life goals? Like, for example, I don't even want to say I'm open to getting married again, because I don't really think I am, mostly because I don't think I want to cohabitate. But let's say whatever that was, right? Once you identify, okay, we both want the same thing long term. Why can't you just be upfront about your compatibility? I like this. I'm a morning person. I'm a night person, whatever. You could just do that in the first 2 dates. Nobody has to spend a dime. Like, we don't, because there are certain things that we start compromising on once we get feelings that I would rather know up front, and we could just agree that let's zone each other, because you're never going to drive this RV, and that's my dream, right? Or whatever that.
I think I agree with you. I think that's true to a point, but I believe that you, in the first part of a dating relationship, that's when you're making those emotional deposits. Like, the attraction and the discovery and all of those things are making those deposits, so that as you get more into the relationship, because you're really in that fantasy stage, and you need that fantasy stage to bank all of these pluses, because as you move through and the journey of getting to know each other, and you start to see the person for who they are, you need that bank, that reserve.
I disagree.
No, when I say, when
want
you,
to fall in love and then find out I'm not really
what,
compatible with.
no, that's not what
Now
I'm
I'm
saying.
dealing with it because I have all these feelings.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I think there, you can ask certain questions. I just don't think that, like, at the beginning of a relationship, you have this list of 50 questions, because now I'm trying to determine if you're compatible. I mean, I think that's part of the journey, and the part of the discovery, and that's part of the excitement. I mean, you don't have to fall in love like right away.
Marlena, we're
Because
here. We're wounded. We're wounded. We got more years behind us than in front of us. We ain't trying to waste that kind of time. All right. Bruce, weigh in. Let me hear something from you. I'm just saying, I'm trying to cut to the chase. Let me just email you this questionnaire. Once you send it back to me, I'm going to put it in my rubric and see what's your level. Then you don't have to spend a dime, and I don't have to spend my time, because to me, my time is money. So,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bruce. You've been real quiet.
I'm just listening, and there's a lot of things that ping into my own experience, and I can understand the desire to be direct. I just don't know if folks are at a place that's consistent where that can be received in the spirit for which it's intended. And so it depends. That level of directness in spirit, I understand, but that could be a definite turnoff for me. To be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It almost feels like you're encroaching versus having a dialogue or a conversation.
it's not organic. That's what I hear you saying. Some of this stuff should just evolve.
It needs to, because if you come with a list, there's an assumption you already come with a predetermined conclusion. You're just trying to act it out to determine whether or not I'm favorable or unfavorable. But this is the way it can be received. Based on the development of a list and the cadence of questions, right?
Isn't that what you're doing anyway? It might, instead of the list, you're spreading it out over a few dates, but essentially you're doing the same thing though, right?
But there's layers to the questions. Just Lauren. There's layers to the questions that even allow me to go through the next door or the next set of questions. Because I may be asking a series of questions, and based on the comfort of those answers, I got another set of questions. Oh, this feels great. It feels better. Let me ask another set.
Perhaps. I mean, I hear what Cara is saying though.
I do too.
When I approach somebody, I let them know, I'm probably not. They say, well, are you interested in getting married again? That's what they ask.
Yes.
And I usually say the person's going to have to be more than awesome for me to consider that, considering I've already been married twice and I don't necessarily like the outcome sometimes of how these relationships go. So that gives them the opportunity to bow gracefully if marriage is what they want, or to continue the conversation if my answer is acceptable. Like I said, several women that I've dated who are in my age range are looking for marriage. So automatically, I'm eliminated. And it's cool because that we've essentially cut to the chase.
Oh.
I'm not wasting their time because they, but for me, it's like, I like to hang out. I want companionship and fun, but I don't necessarily have to be married to do that. But, again, it goes back to how honest are you with yourself?
Okay, Steve. I hear what you're saying. And I think, first of all, I think it's good that when someone asks you that question, you're willing to answer and you're willing to let them know, okay, this is where I am. But also what I'm hearing is, because I would ask you, well, can you qualify and give me some more descriptives of what awesome looks like to you? Because that is so vague. And if there was a man that I was interested in, and because, at one time I obviously wanted to get married, and even when I was dating my husband, very early on, I asked him if he was wanting to get married because I knew that's what I wanted. But that is such a vague answer that either some women, it will scare them away. But then there are other women who will take that, and whatever their thought of awesome is, they're going to try to be that for you, or they're going to try and figure out what that is, or they're going to eventually, he might, maybe I'll be,
if they ask you that question, if they followed up with how do you define awesome, I would probably tell them.
Okay.
I would give them.
Okay. And you're clear on what that is already?
For me at this point in my life, yes.
Good. Okay. Excellent.
Okay, I don't like that because I feel like people can fake. Like I was gonna bring up.
They can, but Cara,
not for long. They can't fake for long.
But here's the interesting thing. It almost reminds me of. So you see a lot of Christian ladies or Christian men. I want someone who loves the Lord. Well, what does that mean?
Exactly. Because he could just say, "Hey,
what Lord are we talking about?"
Lord.
Yeah. I want a God-fearing man. Okay, what does that mean? Or I want a God-fearing woman. How do you quantify that? I don't know that you can do that. But I do have where I'm at in my life right now. I know what it would require, what it would take for me to even consider being married again. And I could easily articulate that. But and Cara, yeah, they could fake it for a moment, but you can't fake it indefinitely.
Okay.
What about you, Bruce? We see you snickering over there.
Every time I hear the God-fearing thing, I remember once this woman asked me that about being a God-fearing man. And, I grew up in the church because I'm from the Southeast, right? So that's what we do. So she started, and I was like, oh, I got something for her behind. That's like, so what's your favorite book? And I said, why? What's your favorite scripture? Tell me more about that. And she kind of, it disarmed her in a way.
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
But what does that mean, and how does it apply in your day-to-day? I mean, yeah. But I mean, she said this, she responded, I think she might have said, who was it? Psalms. Oh, I know it was Psalms. And I was like, oh, that's not fair. That's a long book. Give me something else. That level, just the second question was enough to like, huh. And then she started recoiling, like, well, I just wanted to ask because I come across a lot of guys and, I think this is what they have. But it's like, again, and then there's another part of this too. My father used to tell me this. He said, Dad, he said, son, so remember now, sinners go to church. So the assumption is that all people is these great Christians, right? They're trying to get better. Right. So sometimes people prop themselves because they do have these deficiencies, right? So they say that to defend themselves from themselves and not to allow other bad things to continue to enter into their life. Right. So it's a means by which to protect themselves. So sometimes I think that comes up too. I was like, yeah. So every time I hear that, I'm yeah, okay.
It's so polluted now. It's such a turn off to me. If I hear a man saying a God-fearing woman or whatever, I'm not interested at all. Like I don't even want to have a conversation to explore what you're talking about. Right, I don't even know that I would be compatible with a Christian guy anymore. And I still believe in God, and I would consider myself spiritual. Which to me, when someone says that, it's an open conversation, because what does it mean to them? But the difference is having the spiritual discussion is not judgmental. It's not, there's no assignment. There's no conformism there. It's how do you demonstrate that in your life? There's no wrong answer because you can do whatever you want. Whereas when you put it into any type of denominational structure, there's an automatic set of expectations that goes with that. And there's a lot of pretending underneath that too. If he says he's God-fearing, what that might mean to me might not really be what he's doing, but I'll have a certain expectation. And then he may have, oh, she's a God-fearing woman. Does that mean that we're not having sex until marriage, or like all those different things?
Yeah. But because when people say that, I'm with Bruce. My follow-up question is, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Because now you're going to tell me what that. So you say you're God-fearing. So what does that mean? How does that look like in real life? Mm-hmm. Tell me about your life. See, mm-hmm. and a lot of people cannot articulate that part because it is superficial.
Right. There's nothing under there.
It's superficial.
Take it to the point of what does that look like in your relationship with your partner?
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
And what are your expectations? Because and that's my other issue is if I'm dating a true Christian guy, Bible Belt, he's going to want me to go to church with him. Now I have to put on a whole costume every week, and I'm not going to do that. So that's why
Carl, you're going to have to pray at every meal. Go ahead and say it.
Some things it's just not gonna that do need to be first date discussions. I don't need to talk to you for 90 days. Yeah. Before you know that. And here's the thing, I actually would go to church I'm not opposed to going to church. I don't have church hurt. I'm not angry about it. It's just this weird thing. Maybe in Georgia, when people are really into it, it's their church and their pastor, bishop, whatever. They worship the whole experience. It's exactly, ironically, what the Bible says about they began to worship created things more than the creator. I probably believe in the Bible more than he does. But I don't need to demonstrate it and frame it through this denominational church understanding. So we're off on a
no, but let me just say for the recorded record that I am not bashing good faith Christians. upstanding spiritual people. I'm just
Me either. Me either.
acknowledging
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in my experience, the one or two folks or 200 that have come up who said that, and then you start unpeeling that onion, it falls apart real fast.
I
It's
agree.
terrible
I agree.
because
And there
here's
are
the other
genuine
thing.
folks. The
But
genuine folks,
Bruce,
that's fine. It's those other
Right.
folks. Yeah.
here's
Yeah.
my biggest issue with it. When people put, like, let's visualize online dating profiles. When people put that there, or they say they're looking for that, it to me it's very dangerous, because if someone says he's God-fearing and I value that, my guard is down a little bit more. I'm not necessarily listening with the same level of discernment. I'm giving
Right.
too many points just based on a headline that's right
Mhm.
there.
You don't have the same vetting standard that you
Yeah,
would
you
have
don't
if you
give them the
didn't put
same
that
bet when
there.
they're
Right.
actually
Right.
more dangerous, in my opinion.
Can be.
Men who lead with that, they're doing it on purpose to get these church girls, and it's more deadly. I feel like I could have a much more open conversation with someone who just has spiritual beliefs, or, I mean, honestly, at this point, we're not raising children together. I don't care what his belief system is in terms of religion. And
Right.
also, I've seen way more character from my atheist friends than any Christian I know. All right, I'm done on that, but I have. They're
Right.
honest
Right.
because they're not living in this constant cycle of fear, shame, guilt, etc. That's tied to a lot of religious experiences. They're like, hey, this might be the only life I have, so they're much more likely to lead with authenticity. Well, listen, you guys, we have gone on, and I want to respect your
Oh,
time
yeah.
because I want to do a part two if you guys are open. And so I'm looking for a last question, and I think what I'm going to go with for all of you is, I want to ask you about and this won't apply as much to Charlena because she's been married forever. What are your thoughts on the impact of these dating apps, like inflating or deflating people's perceived values? And I'll just share mine really quickly. I like the concept of it, but that's my personality being and my thinking. I love the idea of going on somewhere and without having to meet in person, I can just see right away this looks like we might kick it. This looks like we wouldn't. But I feel like now, I mean, I haven't done much online dating since I've been divorced this time, since I've been single. I mean, but it just feels like none of it's real anymore, you know. And a lot
Well,
of people
I've
never
been on
ask
I've
this.
been on a couple of dating apps, and it's not. Yeah.
Recently? I mean, in the
Within the
past
last
year.
few
In the past
years,
couple of
I
years.
Okay.
I got on and got off. But let's put it that way. The one I got on at one point, it was Black People Meet. I didn't even put a profile picture up. I just did a little blurb of who it was. My inbox was flooded with
You were
all kinds
fresh
of,
meat. Fresh meat.
yeah, yes. And then the other one I went on, I did put a profile, whatever. And yeah, I went on and went on a couple of dates, but it was interesting. But yeah, I think that the concept is good, but the implementation or application of it unravels
Maybe.
You know what,
because
Steve?
of
I
the honesty factor.
I think that's why when I got on the apps after my divorce, a lot of people were asking, like the first couple, I talked to them, oh, they would always say, how long have you been on here? How long have you been? They're trying to
Right.
gauge, you know, have you run through the population? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
all the
yeah,
questions would
yeah.
always be the same.
So even though I am married, I did dating apps and I enjoyed them because what it did was it gave me the opportunity to meet people that I would never come across in my day-to-day life. And I met some really quality people on the dating site that I was on, and I learned it, and I did it like right after my divorce, and it helped me to transition from being in a long-term marriage to starting to date, and I could control it. And
Right.
it gave me the ability to have, to talk on the phone as often as I wanted to, before I decided, okay, yeah, let me meet this person. But it was a great experience for me. I met some really, really cool people, and I feel very, very grateful for that. People that actually are in my life at this point in time.
Bruce, what are your thoughts on online dating and the value?
Yeah, it's a maturation, you know. So there are people you would never meet. It's women that you would never meet, never meet.
Right.
And then you go in, and it's kind of weird. This is going to sound counterintuitive for the entire comments I made, the entire call. But when you've been married for a while and then you out of the market for an extended period of time, and then you find yourself going back into the market, kind of dating, it almost gives you an idea of your value, right? Of what you attract. I should say that, what you attract.
That's
And
true.
some of it's kind of like, whoa, you know, then some of it's like, girl, why you no, just keep it this swipe, keep swiping. I'm not it, you know. But it was I met some extraordinary women doing some very interesting things. And I will tell you, it also helped me kind of redefine what I thought it is that I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were a couple of women, for example, that, mission stuff is very important, that I'm a person that's about, it's not quote unquote community with a small c, it's about community in a broad way. How is it that you help the world around you better and be
Right.
sincere about that? And there's a couple of women that was really important to them. And then there was other women that you would come across, and the whole bougie thing, I'm just like, nah, I can't get down with that. And
Right.
even to the point that certain women from certain institutions of higher learning, who I will not name on this call, then I'm like, where'd you go to school? Nah, that's not gonna work.
Mhm.
Because I know what comes with that, the trappings that comes with that. I know
Right,
how you
right.
socialize, rightly or wrong. I need to, in the words of my departed friend, let me move you on so you can be with the people that you intended to be with, because I'm not it,
He said it's
Right.
not his price range.
I'm not. I'm a Filene's basement old kind of guy, but Filene's closed, so we got to move on. So, but I just think there's been a lot of good quality people. I've learned a lot. They've shared certain things with me that helped enhance my life, and I hope I've been able to do that with theirs. So I think it's helped. But I do think that I've been away from it. So the iterations from when I first was divorced compared to where they are now, I do think that folks are real quick to try to, and that's another, you brought up a great point. I have done this consciously. For women who have been on a shorter period of time, I will engage those versus those who have been on it for a longer period of time. And it's not because I think they've run through, but I know that they could be soured from the experience.
Mhm.
And so their receptivity may be lessened, or their expectation may be distorted or not realistic or whatever. But in my mind, it can present as another hurdle. So rightly or wrongly, So if you've been on 2 or 3 months, okay. Well, this is my second or third time in the last year. I'm like, oh, okay, go with that. Go with God. Deuces.
Well, I just want to say for the record, I wish men would stop sharing pictures of themselves in the bathroom and the gym. And then they will share pictures of themselves with their children, or like grandchildren. Men love to pose with their cars. I don't mind that, because I know that men think a lot of their cars, but when it looks flashy, that's when I get concerned that you have other issues you're trying to hide. But
Deficiencies.
yes, but I really wish they would not do that. I also want to say, y'all, men pepper women with questions too. Like in
Oh,
my
sure.
little short period where I did the online thing, these guys were on it. Okay, how many children do you have? How many baby fathers do you have? Who still lives in the home? They're doing that first
Man,
conversation.
not
They're
man.
doing, and matter of fact, one man told me, and I really enjoyed talking to him. He had otherwise high emotional intelligence, and then he just disappeared. But which was his choice, whatever. But he said to me, "Okay, you have a 12-year-old son. My son was 12 at the time." And I said, "Well, what are your thoughts on that?" And he said, "Well, you're just not as available for travel and sex." I was like, "Okay." Now I appreciated him being
That's
direct,
honest.
because
That's honest.
That's
it's
very
not right.
honest.
It's
Yeah.
not. And he
Yeah.
said it to me. He didn't personalize it. He said, "And you're newly divorced. I'll just tell you, in the views of men, you're not going to be as available for travel and sex." And so when I was younger and had more self-esteem issues, that would have bothered me. I'd have been like, oh man, it's all because I have this kid. Now I'm like, this is my life. I don't have a lack mentality anymore. So if I meet somebody and they're like, oh man, you have a 14-year-old son, he still lives at home. Oh, this is your situation. Yeah, you can kick rocks, dude. I don't care, because that lack mentality has gotten me absolutely nowhere. I can't even tell the online dating stories that you guys have. The same dude that I met at the library, who I kept talking to, by the way. This when I was like, it was in my 30s. I was in my 30s because I was too nice. Everybody has a story. You know, he's building something. So I never saw him again, but I talked to him on the phone a couple times, and then he calls me out of the blue. I don't know if I ever told you.
No, I know this. I know this.
I have great stories. They're just all really tragic. So he called me out of the blue one day, and he's like, oh, you know, I remember I told you I'm from Ohio. My mom was in a car accident. You remember I told you how much I love my mother, and I got to get a bus ticket. I got to get up there as soon as possible. And I just wanted to know, can you loan me $27? And so I told my brother, and he's like, I'm not saying he's on crack, but it's crack-ish. And so for my birthday that year, my brother sent me a birthday card, and he taped $27 in the card to keep the joke. I just don't have like good date experiences. I've taken a break this year, and when I start dating next year, like I need to have some great experiences. I'm not materialistic, but I don't want to be at the Cheesecake Factory either. I feel like I've been at the Cheesecake Factory my whole adult life, and I'm over it.
What's wrong with the cheese?
I mean, nothing, but you know what I'm saying. Well, it's a chain, so that's why I wouldn't want to go. I would go if somebody's willing to put their time in. But I'm too nice.
The desserts are great. The appetizers are great.
Yeah, it's just I'm not a
Sounds
fan
like
of-
dessert.
Yeah, I don't even need cheese.
You know, I went on a date at the Waffle House. Wasn't the first date, but I went on a date at the Waffle House.
And see, I would not care. Here's my issue, y'all. I'm gonna land the plane
At
on this.
a ball.
Yeah, I don't care if I'm at the Waffle House. I don't care if I'm at the Cheesecake Factory. I don't care if we're taking a walk in the park. I care about how I am treated. And
That's
so while
true.
we may be at the Waffle House sometimes, there are times where I would need to see some effort. And I'm not at a point anymore where I would stay even 5 minutes once I realize I'm dealing with someone who I feel is lazy, because that's not what I give. I'm never going to do it again. I love myself. I love my space. I can be by myself. And so I don't have a reason to entertain any of that. I'm just not dealing with low energy and low effort anymore. I treat myself really great. So, and it's taken me a long time to get here, but I feel like, you know, the other thing I'll say is I used to get so resentful. I'm just going to be honest. When I would see women post on social media about all the amazing things their man did for them, the flowers, or they went on a trip, or just little consistent, attentive things he did, until I realized, well, Cara, you don't demand anything. Nothing is required. You just keep hoping, and then you'll complain, and you might whine about it, but you keep dealing with, you know, the Waffle House.
Okay, quick question on that note, Bruce, Steve, what is it that makes you or causes you to want to do the extra for a woman, or that maybe very early on, what is it that says, you know what, I want to do this, or you know what, this is our first date, or this is our second date, I want to have her experience this with me, or I want to experience that with her, you know, something that, what compels you to do above and beyond the average, whatever that is, for a woman very early on? What is it that takes you to that point, if anything?
Steve.
Well, I mean, for me, it's the initial attraction, because I like, and because I like to talk to people and find out what makes them tick or whatever, then I'm willing to go there. And if they respond to that, then it will just make me, it motivates me to continue to go above and beyond. I guess that's it. So I'm an optimist to a fault. So I'm just going to assume that it's going to work out really, really well. And so I'm going to do that. And I think I shared this with you all before. Part of my perspective, having survived cancer, is some of it, even though it's superficial, it's not life or death. So I don't mind spending the money or taking the time or whatever, because it can be beneficial. And even if it, and I don't see it as a loss if nothing ever comes of that. That's what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's the initial attraction and wanting to really, because I really do want to get to know this person. You know what I'm saying? And hope that it turns into something, whatever that is. And so that motivates me until I see that it probably won't.
Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking it was. I remember, like, I've been in, you go on these various dates, and I remember this woman said something, and it just really touched me in a way, like, you know what, I'll do something for her. And what she said was, and we had gone out maybe once or twice, a couple of times, and I don't know where we were. She said, well, Lauren, have you eaten today? In other words, it was a question of concern. It was a question of care. And it was like coming from, again, I use the word a lot, but even in the question, it was very authentic in it, because it's so unique. I don't get that question. And I was like, wow, it kind of made me feel like, wow, I would like to, with that level of care for someone else and selflessness, man, I'd like to do something for her. Or what can I do for her, was something that came to mind. I thought that was just so thoughtful, and it really touched me in that way. Things like that, it's like, and that's a simple question, but you'll be surprised how infrequent that ever comes up.
You're right.
So I was like really touched by that.
I think it's what let's close it out, guys. But I think it reminds me of what my cousin said. When I was dating somebody, he said that everybody's just operating in fear, and there's a lot of fear going on. And so it's so unfortunate, because you could be a match for somebody, but if you're leading with your fears and they're leading with their fears, then you're never really getting to that authentic side to see that, we could have like a best friend, homie lover, vibe kind of thing. That's just so much fear, because you would come in guarded. Like, there could be a woman who is nurturing, right? But she's given and given and given so much and not been taken care of in return, that she might have a concern, but she's scared to say it too soon. Like, I would say, I'm not cooking for somebody right off the bat. I'm a great cook, but I feel like once I go in that kitchen, you're never going to take me out to eat again. That's how I feel. So now I'm like, I'm not cooking right off the bat. And then he'll say, well, why do we need to go out? Your chicken is great. Well, I want to be served sometimes. So I think the fear drives a lot of it.
Oh, not to be clear now, I'm not saying you said this, but in the instance this question was asked, it wasn't, the next question was, let me fix you something to eat. Or let me do, it was one of those questions that during the scope of the day, have you had anything to eat? Or what have you eaten? It's like, it was just that in his face. That's all.
All right.
I like it. Well, closing thoughts, Charlena. So we started this off talking about the kind of like the economics of dating, and I think we veered in a couple of different directions, but it was really, really good. And I really wanted to understand more how men view money and being willing to spend money on a woman. Did they think they were supposed to? So there were some things we didn't necessarily talk about in terms of, do you think the man should pay all the time? There's things we could talk about maybe at a later time, but man, I think this was so interesting. I really enjoyed hearing your perspectives, and I think we need more of this, because I do think that we make it so complicated, but it really doesn't have to be that way, So, I mean, that's all I can really say on it right now. I will end by saying that my dad used to say, and I grew up hearing this all the time, romance without finance is a nuisance. And so we didn't get there today, but Charlene and I were talking earlier, like, I don't know that we should be dating if neither one of us is financially stable, or if you're not, like, it's not a
Yeah.
fair thing. So
Oh,
that's
that's a fair question.
where I would end
Yeah,
it.
we didn't even touch on that. And we
No,
can
but
touch
let's
on it
just
later,
go
but
back
that
to the
definitely.
beginning of the
So
topic. I don't
yeah,
know.
let's table that for
Yeah.
the next time we broach the subject. And yeah, definitely. So write that down so we, don't forget, Cara. And then I want to throw something out there because we all have been married, right?
Yes.
Okay. I want to throw something out there. I believe that marriage is transactional, and I'm gonna leave it right there. We can address that
is.
later.
Mhm.
Okay.
I believe that. Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
Closing thoughts, Steve?
No, it's been enjoyable, and yeah, I want to do a part two. We can talk about those other particulars, which I think that the finance stuff, it's superficial in the sense that either you have it or you don't. Either you're willing to do it or you're not. I think it's pretty cut and dry when it comes to, and like you said, if neither one of you have the finances to do it, then yeah, it's only a problem if you want to do that high dollar dating thing and you don't have high dollars to do that. But broke people date. They just don't. They do more walks in the park
Right.
and
Right.
coffee.
And then, maybe
They're
in
camping,
20
Steve. They're camping. I'm never going to meet him camping. He's broke.
but here's the other side of it too. Maybe those folks who are at a certain economic challenge, you got to be more creative. It's not
Creative.
the standard
Exactly.
answer. You
Yeah.
got to go out. Hey, you know what? I don't know.
They
Maybe
do a lot of free stuff
maybe it's crazy. You go to a museum.
No,
You know,
creative,
in the library.
creative can
Right.
have more weight than money in some time.
Yes.
In some, it
Yes.
It just
can.
depends on, is this a permanent? Is it permanent, or are we just in
Okay,
a very,
you know what? Stop.
you know
We're
what I'm
gonna
saying?
stop right
It
there.
has to be next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce,
Yeah.
what else did you want to say? You have the floor. You're the last talking point before we go.
No, that's all. It was just
That's
that
it.
I just think that sometimes that level of creativity shows a level of thoughtfulness.
Mhm.
Shows a lot of selflessness.
Right.
In ways that if it's prescripted, then you lose a little bit of that. That's all.
Okay. Well, listen, if I will send you guys a message if you're open, depending on your schedule. We may be right
Sounds
back
good.
here. Listen, I appreciate your time so much. This was fun. We could talk. We could go on. So much love to y'all. Thank you for making the time, especially so last minute. I hope everybody watching enjoyed, and please feel free to share with your friends. Let us know any feedback and that sort of thing. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.